If you're watching this video right now, there's a good chance you already know the Nikon D850 is a legend. But today, I want you to sit back, relax, and let me take you deep inside the world of this incredible machine. Deeper than the typical spec sheet, deeper than the quick reviews you've seen. Because the Nikon D850 isn't just a camera, it's a statement. A reminder that even in a world rushing toward mirrorless everything, some tools simply refuse to be forgotten. And by the time you finish listening to this video, you'll understand why photographers still hold the D850 with a kind of reverence usually reserved for vintage sports cars or classic rock albums. The Nikon D850 isn't new. It's not flashy anymore, but that's exactly what makes it so interesting. It's like discovering a masterpiece years after its release, only to realize it wasn't hyped. It earned every bit of its reputation. Because even today, the D850 stands tall among modern cameras, quietly outperforming and outlasting gear that arrived years after it. And let me tell you something. If you've ever picked up a camera that made you feel confident, really confident, this one takes it further. There's something about holding a D850 that says you're ready to create something amazing. The weight, the grip, the unmistakable Nikon ruggedness doesn't just sit in your hand. It anchors you. But before we go any further, I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself standing at the edge of an overlook. Early morning. The sun hasn't fully risen yet, but a blue haze is rolling over the hills. You're cold, but only the good kind of cold. The kind you feel when you know you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You lift the D850, focus, press the shutter, and you know instantly the shot will be perfect. Not because you got lucky, not because the camera saved you, but because you and the camera work together like two parts of the same machine. That feeling is why people still buy this camera today. It's why photographers refuse to sell it. It's why, even with Nikon pushing mirrorless forward, the D850 still shows up in professional studios, on mountain peaks, in wildlife hides, and in the hands of creators who value something deeper than trends. Now, let's talk about the sensor. 45.7 megapixels. Not just a big number, an experience. The detail you get from this camera almost feels unfair, like you're peeking into another world. And the dynamic range? It gives you shadows that refuse to die, and highlights that somehow hold on just long enough. Whether you're shooting weddings, landscapes, products, wildlife, or portraits, the D850 has this uncanny ability to create images that feel alive. Images that pull you in. Images that make someone stop scrolling and pay attention. And then there's the autofocus. Reliable, predictable, trusted. It doesn't try to guess what you want. It just listens. If you shoot fast action, you know autofocus isn't just a feature, it's everything. And the D850 gives you the kind of focusing system that simply doesn't panic. Birds in flight, it locks on. Athletes sprinting toward you, it stays with them. A bride walking down the aisle in dim lighting, still sharp, always sharp. But let's shift the conversation for a moment. Because the D850 isn't just about freezing moments, it's about capturing motion too. A lot of people forget this, but the D850 shoots 4K video using the full width of its sensor. No weird crap. No surprise limitations. Just clean, crisp, beautiful video. Yes, it's DSLR video. Yes, newer cameras have fancy autofocus systems. But there's something undeniably cinematic about D850 footage. Something organic. Something with a soul. Maybe it's the color science. Maybe it's the sensor. Maybe it's the way the camera forces you to slow down just enough to think before pressing record. But one thing's for sure. Creators who choose the D850 for video don't do it by accident. They do it because they know the camera gives them footage that's rich, textured, and timeless. Now, let me talk directly to you for a moment. Because whether you're here to learn, to compare, or to make a buying decision, I want you to think about why you're drawn to the D850 in the first place. You could choose any modern mirrorless camera, and they're great. I'm not here to pretend they're not. But the D850 appeals to a different part of you. The part that values reliability. The part that wants to feel your gear in your hand. DS, not just glance at it. The part that wants to trust a camera the moment you turn it on. That's why people call the D850 a workhorse. Because it shows up. It performs. and it keeps performing long after other cameras have been replaced, traded in, or sent for repairs. It's the kind of camera that feels like a long-term commitment instead of a temporary purchase. And there's something else, something you can't measure on paper. When you use a D850, it doesn't push you. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't overwhelm you with too many digital prompts or touchscreen shortcuts or hidden menus. Instead, it invites you to think like a photographer, to compose, to breathe, to wait for a moment instead of chasing it in panic. A lot of cameras today are built around convenience. The D850 is built around craft. And speaking of craft, let's talk build quality. This camera feels like it could survive a storm, a fall, a rough weekend, and maybe even a mild apocalypse. Moisture? Dust? Cold? Heat? The D850 shrugs. It's the camera you bring when you're not sure what the day will throw at you. The camera you pack when reliability is more important than anything else. If you've never used a DSLR body like this, especially if you're coming from something smaller, you'll notice a difference immediately. The controls are where they should be. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a tactile presence. You're not just tapping a screen, you're operating a machine designed to be used with intention. And maybe that's why the D850 has such a loyal following. Maybe that's why so many photographers keep coming back to it, even after trying newer options. Because using it makes you feel like you're part of a tradition, a lineage, a generation of creators who learn not by shortcuts or automation, but by understanding light, timing, and technique. And here's something interesting. The D850 isn't just for older photographers or DSLR purists. A surprising number of younger creators, especially in the USA, are picking it up for the first time and falling in love with it. They're discovering what made the DSLR era so special. They're realizing that cameras aren't disposable tech. They could be lifelong tools. Now imagine you're shooting with the D850. You're working on a portrait session. The light is soft. The client is nervous. But the moment you take the first shot and show them the back of the camera, the detail, the colors, the skin tones, they relax. They trust you. They trust your equipment. And that trust changes everything. The session flows. The energy improves. The results speak for themselves. Or picture yourself hiking into the woods, searching for wildlife. Hours pass. Nothing. Then suddenly, a fox appears. You lift the D850, dial in your settings by instinct, and take the shot. It's sharp, perfect. And even after cropping, you still have details so crisp you could count the individual hairs on its coat. That is the power of 45 megapixels paired with one of the best sensors Nikon has ever produced. But let's not forget battery life. Mirrorless shooters know this pain all too well. Swapping batteries mid-shoot, carrying extras everywhere, watching the percentage drop even when the camera is off. The D850? It just keeps going and going and going. You can shoot an entire wedding on a single battery. You can document an entire day outdoors without worrying about charging. That freedom alone feels like a luxury today. And yes, it's true. The camera is big. It's heavy compared to modern bodies. But that weight is stability. That weight is confidence. That weight is balance when you're using long lenses or shooting handheld in low light. And once you get used to it, lighter cameras sometimes feel like toys. And finally, let's talk value. Because in 2025, the D850 is one of the smartest buys in the entire photography world. You're getting a camera that still competes with modern gear for a fraction of the price. A camera with a proven track record. A camera that holds its worth. A camera that isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So if you're thinking about getting a Nikon D850, listen closely. This camera isn't just a tool. It's an investment in your creativity. A partner that will push you to grow. A reminder of what photography is supposed to feel like. A camera that earns your respect every time you use it. And when you hold it in your hands, you'll understand why so many photographers still say the same thing. The Nikon D850 is the last camera I'll ever need.